Our kupuna experiences really guide our decision making today. To become a lawyer or an expert in a trait, a practitioner of Hawaiian culture and traditions, a student needs to learn firsthand from those experiences. And so, being an Olapa dancer for Halau Kekuhi, I've dedicated 30 years of my life to the practice. I've made mistakes on stage and backstage while preparing for ceremony and performances. Only through these experiences am I a lawyer of Olapa dancer of the Halau. Just like that, my fathers and uncles in King's Landing, they are loya kanakalabaya, fishermen and mahi'ai, farmers through these experiences in King's Landing. In a recent interview with my father, he recounted all of his past fishing experiences in King's Landing and how he was able to raise our ohana of 6 on I'a, Limu, Opihi, and A'ama. And he became a loya because he learned through his experiences of our unforgiving ocean of Kai'ai Kanaka. His most valuable lesson being the 3 times he fell, or actually was pulled into the ocean, and how he patiently waited for the right and safe opportunity to get out. Our kupuna were lo'ea of sustainability, of survival, of community camaraderie, and especially lo'ea are experts of this aina. And so when we think of community and kauhale locations, our kupuna decided, with the help of the Kuikuhi Pu'one, the architect, and other kahuna practitioners of Papahuli Honua, or kahuna of the land, they chose settlement locations based on the best viability of survival, sustainability, and self-sufficiency of the community, and not the individual Kanaka. Now, when we ponder this question of viability, the ability to survive or live successfully, we as Native Hawaiian beneficiaries of the trust should really have a persuasive decision-making power in that assessment. We at King's Landing are the evidence of the land's viability. We are the evidence of community viability. We have, for over 40 years, survived under these conditions, have lived successfully under these conditions, and have flourished because of these conditions. And when we look towards our kupuna for their experiences, we see that the lands of King's Landing have traditionally been utilized for living purposes. When Dad went holo holo, he would always tell us stories of settlement remains throughout King's Landing, between King's Landing and Papaibe. Kamehameha established Kikanawai Mamalahoe down at Papa'i, a 20-minute drive from King's Landing. And this is evidence of historical settlement. Papa'i was a thriving fishing village. Mary Kua and Ohana settled King's Landing before Maha, and she welcomed Uncle Bill Pakani to reside at Waiokawa. The creation and composition of new place name chants and hula by myself and my cousins, who are Olapa dancers committed to the responsibility of the kuahu, are evidence of continued settlement of King's Landing. When we, as a hui, come together to discuss and assess the lands of King's Landing for homesteading, please let us be guided by the experiences of the loya and of the kupuna who have inhabited these coastlines for more than 300 years. Every possible concern of due diligence and possible liability can be addressed. Solutions can be thought out, innovative ideas can be born. And so please let us be cautioned by the due diligence process, but not hampered by its liability concerns. I'd also like to take the opportunity to try and add to some of the discussion that was provided yesterday. And so thank you, Chairman Ayla, for answering the question about the concern of Maha or King's Landing people and other people coming into the lands of King's Landing. In the East Hawaii Regional Plan, it supports the King's Landing area for educational, cultural, and community purposes. The sense of maybe prohibition only stems from the concern of liability when it comes to the unforgiving ocean of Kai'ai Kanaka. All King's Landing people know very well the caution that must be taken when we address Kanaloa in King's Landing. And so that's where the concern of prohibition comes from. Maha has welcomed community partnership. Last year, we welcomed Ka'umeke Ka'eo Hawaiian Immersion Public Charter School into Papa'aloa near Green Ponds, so that they could collect limu data for their year-long inquiry-based research project. This was 4th grade. We are excited to continue this educational relationship with the school. It was only hampered this year by the moving in of non-beneficiaries into Green Ponds. When I taught summer school at Ka'umeke Ka'eo, we took the keiki to see the maile patches of Pu'umaile. We are welcoming this year Maha's relationship with the Edith Kanaka Foundation and the Papaku Makavalu team as we work together with the Kili'i William Ioane Legacy Foundation on a cultural research project. I'm partnering with my aunties to conduct a Papaku Makavalu culture research Noho Papa. It's a grant that we received from the county. And so we are collecting mo'olelo chants and practitioner relationship and uses with the coastline and Aina from Lehia to Papa'i. Another concern that was brought up yesterday was wastewater treatment in the future and our closeness to the airport. And so in Maha, we take the toilet very seriously. My father is more than happy to share with you his contemplations with his wastewater process. As the PIG can attest to when they came for their brief visit to Dad's Hale, and he gave them a tour of his outhouse treatment and process. So it's a conversation that Maha is excited to have with the PIG. And the airport noise concern, I have to say that yesterday after, while listening to the continued conversation, I was sitting with my childhood neighbor, Navai Laimana, another Ohana from King's Landing. And just like we have respect for our kupuna who have passed on the wait list, I also have respect for myself as evidence and other Kilkaha members who have lived and are raised near the airport. And I took offense to the possibility of noise complaint because I was born in King's Landing. I was born into the airport noises. I went to school in Kilkaha Elementary at Kaiapuni. We lived before the AC in the airport complaint. And I continue to live there with my father with the airport. So yes, it is a possible concern, but we have been living in this environment our entire life. And it is something that we understand, just like we understand the severity of the ocean that we live by. And I'd like to also commend such a great discussion yesterday about climate change and global warming. And my father actually shared a really good story about he could feel, as a fisherman, he knew that the water was already getting warmer just based on his experiences in there. And when I hear the discussions yesterday, one of the questions about how do we prepare ourselves as Hawaiian beneficiaries for the climate change? And so it's such an invigorating question to think, how do we as beneficiaries prepare our homesteading parcels for the possibility of disruption in our global trade? And it provides us a foundation to begin to really think about sustainability of our homesteads and of our communities. And the last mana'o that I'd like to support is with all the other beneficiaries that came before me. I agree and support what Blossom discussed about beneficiaries wanting to stay on their One Hanau lands and having a area waitlist opportunity, because familial lineal ties to lands is what makes us who we are as Po'e Hawaii, as Kanaka Oiwi of this land. That relationship stems from the Kumulipo and our direct connection to the creation and formulation and birth of our islands. This chant was composed right at Honohononui, right outside of King's Landing. And having that understanding and having that familial and lineal connection is the foundation of rehabilitation for Po'e Hawaii. You know, just 2 days ago, we celebrated the 129-year overthrow of our kingdom. And in reflecting this with my keiki, one of the things that keep us Po'e Oiwi is that connection to Aina, and is that our mo'okuauhau to place and to one hanau. And I also agree that living in places like Kahikinui and King's Landing, you have to have the right mindset. Mindset is a requirement for rehabilitation, and mindset is a requirement for living. We are unique, Kahikinui and King's Landing, in the sense that we are choosing that lifestyle. In King's Landing, we are a community chosen. We choose to live with each other. We have built relationships and established a community. We were not, in a sense, displaced where one Po'e Hawaii is moved into a different community and then asked to live together. King's Landing is an established community. And one of our scares and concerns is the severing of that organic relationship that we've created and our unique kauhale living in King's Landing. And when I speak of successorship, I'm a successor to my father's legacy, and I humbly ask access to my one hanau. And the thought of losing it is unimaginable to my spirit. Like my father always say, he's in the fourth quarter. And having security to carry out his legacy is very important, not only to our ohana, but I know to the entire Lahui. So mahalo again, commissioners, for your time.
Aloha, Ainaaloha. Aloha, sorry.